A new camera and only one lens, the best lens for travel and documentary photography. I've taken these to one of the most photogenic regions of Brazil. Will this minimalist setup be enough to rekindle my photographic mojo as I dive back into travel photography? So much to share, so much for you to learn, so keep watching. Regular viewers might know that although I am a travel and documentary photographer, I really haven't been doing much shooting lately. There's a good reason for that. At the beginning of the year, we faced the drama of losing our home on wheels. Very luckily, we did get a new one. But sorting everything out took quite a long time and pretty much all of my energy. This video, however, is about what happened once we hit the road and once I found new photographic inspiration. If you're eager to get to the part about the camera that I used, the best travel photography lens and all of that stuff, then go to this timestamp because I won't talk about these things in the first half of the video. But I do highly recommend watching the entire video. If you love travel and documentary photography, it'll be worth it. It is scorching hot outside, I was sweating buckets, and we actually got a hotel room, so I thought, well, I better do this here then. Now, while over the past few months, I was not shooting anything that I would consider serious stuff, I did still document some family moments. I experiment, just a little, but honestly, more often than not, I did leave my camera behind. One afternoon though, on a beautiful beach in Barra Grande, Bahia, I just decided, hey, I'm gonna bring my camera and shoot whatever comes my way. If nothing else, I'd photograph my daughter and some landscapes. Exactly what I also did. But then I stumble upon a group of young men playing football. This to me is Bahia. Ocean, blue sky, fun on the beach, football. The guys are excited about being photographed and one even asks me, make a photo of my tattoo. I ask, what was in 1985? My mother's birthday, he replies. So I'm like, damn, this grown dude could be my son. Anyway, over the next few days, my enthusiasm for shooting gradually returned.
I photographed a night of samba in Itacaré. The happy, dynamic vibe reignited my inspiration even more. I started carrying my camera everywhere again, sometimes capturing little moments like this one.
Our next stop is the town of Cachoeira, away from the Brazilian coast. I hope to photograph candomblé here, a Brazilian religion with African roots, but some things didn't align, so not this time.
Cachoeira, however, is very photogenic. As we arrive, everything is bathed in beautiful golden light. The architecture reminds me of the photos that I've seen from Old Havana in Cuba, with its rustic colonial buildings. Seeing this, I'm really excited about making photos here. The people are friendly and open to being photographed, which is encouraging. And so over the next few days, as I walk the streets, my instincts that had become dormant begin to awaken. I'm making photos at every corner, inspired by almost everything around me. Over the next couple of days, I wander around the local market. The light, though, is mostly flat. Even in the mornings, it's nothing like the inspiring light of our first afternoon in Cachoeira. Still, I make the most of it. I focus on the dynamics of the market, I experiment with composition, and capture expressive body language. I also make photos of some memorable characters that I come across. This man with his cat, elderly gentlemen wearing hats. They remind me of my grandpa, so I just can't resist photographing them. And this man, he has such a striking sense of style.
I crossed the river to São Félix, over the oldest bridge in Brazil, by the way, and here I'm in a cigar factory. More photo opportunities. Everyone's surprisingly open to being photographed. Later in the afternoon, I see a boy very enthusiastically playing football. Gabriel is his name. He starts to show off a little as he sees me with a camera. So I capture a few frames of him against a backdrop that again gives off those old Havana vibes.
Last day in Cachoeira. The morning light is beautiful. I'm flying the drone. Here's the bridge I mentioned, the oldest in Brazil. And over these days, our camper had been parked by the side of this church. Actually, prime location right next to the historical center where all the action takes place. I take one last stroll through the streets. The bright light makes all the colors look more vivid, and it creates a dramatic interplay of light and shadow. I come across a gentleman fixing the cobblestone road in front of his house. These roads might be charming, but they require constant maintenance. After some wandering around, I meet a man who's an 8th generation woodcarver. He's passionate about his craft, and he tells me that he's passed his skills to his son and to his nephews. I like this environmental portrait. It shows the chaos of his workshop but adds context, as well as a sense of story to this photo.
We decide to leave Cachoeira and to keep exploring. I'm looking on Google Maps and discover a small town called Santiago do Iguapé. It seems remote. I see that there's a historical church in it. I'm intrigued. So that's exactly where we head next.
The place turns out to be a hidden gem. A quaint fishing village by a river. And there's that 500-year-old church. At this time, there were even archaeologists there. Almost immediately after arriving, I meet this man. He's selling coconuts. And what an expression here. He's actually calling out to his wife. A more normal expression in this one. And that's his wife in the back. The shore is alive with activity. Men are preparing bait for crab fishing. Mothers are bathing children. And all of this under golden afternoon light that makes everything really vivid and lively. This is just photographic bliss. Further along the river, some guys are enjoying a swim, while younger boys play and adults ready their fishing nets for the evening. The villagers are incredibly open and friendly, and the church provides a really photogenic backdrop. Then this boy walks into my frame, and another one behind him, and it's just a perfect photo opportunity. Their children here are wonderful. My daughter joins them in play. And it was so refreshing to see children playing outside, not just glued to devices. We stay in front of the historical church. The next morning is quieter than I expected. I fly the drone. Everything looks even more beautiful from above. There are still some photo opportunities. A man waits for boats to return from a night's fishing. More men arrive and some boats come back with their catch. Yep, crabs, some fish, and apparently a lot of jellyfish that'll sting you so painfully you'll cry, so says one of the fishermen. Later, a young man just casually arrives to bathe his horse. All of this action is taking place within like a 200-meter radius.
I wish that we could have stayed longer here, but the camper drama cost us so much time and our visa is expiring relatively soon. So if we want to see more of Brazil, which we do, we have to move on.
We head to the state of Sergipe, stopping by another beach in Bahia the night before. By now, I'm fully in photography mode and I find inspiration everywhere. At the beach that night, I notice how the street lights give the palms this electrified look. And I think it's really something against the starry sky. So I experiment. A bit of motion blur, hey, why not? The next couple of days are quieter photographically. We head to the historical town of 𝗖𝗯𝗹𝗲. In the evening, I capture this image. Then this portrait of a man in a hat, a recurring theme in my photos. I guess for me, there's some aesthetic pleasure in these hats. They're so much more interesting than the modern caps that most people wear these days. On our way to Alagoas the next evening, I photograph another man in a hat in front of a church. My confidence in approaching people for photos in Brazil has now grown, and I'm just eager to seize every opportunity, especially since I feel that I've missed too many of them already. After the sun goes down, we take a ferry. Still inspired, I continue to shoot. I experiment with low light and slower shutter speeds. I capture this man, again in a hat. It seems like he's sending a message on his phone, maybe to his family, about his arrival. Across the river, we reach another fishing village. I wander around, chat with fishermen, and of course, make more photos. We spend the night in the camper by the shoreline. The next morning there is action nearby. Nice golden morning light brings out all the colors, and the interplay of light and shadow makes almost everything visually interesting. I walk around more, stick my head into a few places, talk to people, and even jump on a boat where a man is fixing lights, not threatening me with this knife, although it's unclear what he's doing at first. But I really like this little element of the unknown.
So this is where I'll wrap it up. These images represent the culmination of my pretty intense shooting experience over the last couple of weeks. My attempt to document the essence, the rhythms of life in these regions that I visited. A very quick little interjection. All of these photos that you've been seeing throughout the video, I was able to create them in a relatively quick amount of time after being away from photography for quite long. Now, it did take me a little bit of time to get back into the flow of things, but once I did, right away I was able to create photos that have meaning, that are beyond just beautiful postcard images. These photos have a sense of atmosphere, a sense of story, sometimes a sense of place. And so, how was I able to do that? I will, of course, talk about some of the ways a bit later on in this video, but there is much more to it. Over the years, I've developed a whole system, a method to create these kinds of photos. And I have got an entire course on this topic called the Ultimate Method to Amazing Photos. It's about photos with a meaning, powerful photos that have an impact on your viewers, that have a sense of story, that have something more to them, and that sometimes even really inspire others. So if you are interested in creating those kinds of photos, if you've been enjoying the photos that you've been seeing in this video, then I think you should definitely check out the course. I have included all the details about it in the description below, and there is even a very big discount just because you're watching this and showing interest. And that's it, check it out. That's all that I wanted to say here. All right, let's now talk gear. As I said, I will talk about the lens, of course, but first, the camera body. For all of these photos, I used the Sony a7C II camera. It's not perfect, but it has excellent autofocus, and it does have a flip screen, which is very useful for this kind of photography. This isn't the first time that I used this camera. I have used it before on my Andalusia trip, but it is the first time that I'm using it as I normally would for an extended period of time. And I think it's worth making a more complete video about all my thoughts and experiences with this camera, so stay tuned for that. This camera's burst mode with quite a few frames per second was great for capturing the exact moments that I wanted, and the silent shutter was ideal for when I got closer to people and didn't want them to hear that shutter click, which I think sometimes kind of makes people act for the camera when they hear that click. Now, finally, the lens. If you watch my channel regularly, you'll know that my favorite, in my opinion, the best travel photography lens is none other than the 35mm f1.8. It is consistently the right choice for the kind of travel and documentary work that I do. And when paired with the Sony a7C II, I can shoot quite discreetly without drawing much attention with it. I stuck with this lens throughout. I didn't use any other lens because I just find it so light and flexible, and honestly, I never felt the need to go wider or more tight. Sometimes a really close-up portrait, like really getting up to the person's face, might feel a little too intrusive with this lens. But for me, I generally don't need anything closer than this. And I had no issues in this case or in similar cases. My focus was usually on including background and context into my shots. Now I share all of this to show you the results firsthand. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. I really do use this lens, and you've seen the outcomes. Now, a 24-70 or really any zoom lens would offer more versatility, but Would I carry it everywhere? Probably not. In the fishing villages, maybe, because I was already kind of parked amidst the action and I didn't really need to be as discreet. It's not like I could hide that I'm a stranger in this small community. So in a situation like that, no need to be so discreet. 24-70 could work. But it's like I said, I really didn't feel the need. If it were my only lens, then sure, I'd use it, but it would not be my first choice. I love that the 35mm lens mirrors how I see the world. Some prefer the 50mm because supposedly it's closer to the human eyesight, but for me, the 35mm is just right. Not too wide, not too tight. It's perfect for the type of photography that I love. And if you love the same kind of photography, then I highly recommend it. Now for some lessons and insights from these recent weeks of photography. After the camper incident, I was off my game, so to say. And I wasn't surrounded by the right settings, nor by the kinds of subjects that inspired me creatively, photographically. I am drawn to faces, to characters, and the kind of rustic architecture that I saw in Cachoeira.
Most places I visited in Bahia before Cachoeira were too polished. They seemed to really only be made for tourists. Beautiful, but not for me. When I finally found the kinds of settings that I connected with, inspiration just flowed naturally, especially during the golden hour.
So I think that this goes for any of you too. If you lack creative inspiration, if you're struggling creatively, then there is no sense to be somewhere where you are not inspired. Try to be in the kinds of settings surrounded by the kinds of subjects that are interesting to you, that evoke something in you. This is a crucial one. If you're a violinist, you must play the violin, right? It's the same with sport or any craft. You need to practice repeatedly. With photography, I've sometimes fooled myself thinking that I can just pick up the camera and create the kinds of images that I want. That's not how it works. You will be rusty, especially if you're photographing people, if you are in dynamic settings and capturing moving subjects. You need to be alert, you need to be ready, and you need to be thinking ahead, planning your shots before they even unfold. Even with all of my experience, it might still take me like a whole afternoon, as it did in Cachoeira, to get back into some kind of groove. I did feel awkward sometimes, and I did make the most out of some of the opportunities that I had that day. For instance, I encountered some charismatic, albeit drunk individuals who were very open to being photographed, but I moved on too quickly. I felt a bit lost, like I said, awkward. It's like I forgot what to do in such situations. Even in this barber shop, where I managed a few portraits of this man that I really like, I could have done more. And although I wasn't completely out of practice when I was shooting in Cachoeira, I was kind of getting back into my groove gradually. It is clear you need to consistently hone your skills if you are even half serious about photography. On the streets, when we travel, what do we photograph? Well, it varies by photographer, of course. For me, it's about capturing what I call visual poetry.
This could mean repeating patterns or capturing evocative light that adds mood to the scene, or finding a strong graphical element. I also look for gestures, interactions, and body language. I'm really drawn to scenes that convey a sense of story, like the man fixing the road, the wood carver, or to any activity that happens against a backdrop that in some way can evoke a sense of the place that I'm photographing. Sometimes you might just discover, as I had, that there are photogenic characters everywhere, each adding to the richness of the street photography experience.
After not shooting for a while, I was absolutely thrilled to rediscover the joys of finding photographic treasures.
Roaming through Cachoeira, it felt like something magical might be around every corner, although that wasn't always the case, of course. The mere possibility of that was exhilarating. Arriving at the fishing village with a church was like uncovering a photographic gem. The area was full of photo opportunities. There's a profound satisfaction when everything comes together, when the light is just as you want, when someone passes through your frame at the right moment. It's like entering a flow state where you're deeply immersed and thoroughly enjoying the whole creative process.
Over these days, a key aspect for me was the overwhelmingly positive response from almost all of the people who I had asked to photograph. This began that afternoon on the beach with the guys playing football. They were eager to participate, and they even asked me to send the photos via Instagram. This was a stark contrast to some of the places like the Sacred Valley in Peru, where I often felt like I was a burden asking people for photographs. The typical response in these parts of Brazil was like, "Oh yeah, great, go ahead, just send me the photos too." Also, one instance comes to mind. This photo. The man noticed me making a candid shot, and so I asked him if I could photograph him. He didn't get angry that I was photographing while he wasn't looking. He just smiled and said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." Such positive interactions help rebuild confidence, and they inspire you. As a result, there could be mutual enjoyment in the photographic process. It's a way to meet people, to interact, and sometimes to genuinely have fun. For anyone returning to or starting photography of people, these positive experiences are just vital. If I had faced multiple rejections one after another, I might have just thought, man, forget about this place, I'll wait till the next destination to take out my camera. There's an old adage, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
My first afternoon in Cachoeira was bathed in beautiful golden light, but in the following days, this light was fleeting, lasting maybe an hour in the morning and very briefly in the afternoon, if I was lucky. And the rest of the time was just overcast and rainy.
So, what did I do? Luckily, the area was just brimming with photogenic faces and characters, so I just made the most of the situation.
There was this striking gentleman near the market with his incredibly cool style. Then there was Gabriel, the kid with the football, and other great faces too. The rainy weather also led me to that cigar factory, where I feel I did capture some solid images.
The key is simply to make the most of what you have. While you could also create light artificially, that's not really my style. For me, the idea is to capitalize on the circumstances that you are given. This is a principle that I consistently preach, and it's played a very significant role over my past few weeks of photography.
When the light was inspirational, dramatic, and favorable, I cherished it. I always stress that no light is inherently good or bad, but certain types of light can be more dramatic and can be more suitable to your needs. And of course, they can be more inspiring for you. Whenever I encountered that kind of light, in my case, it created a dynamic interplay of light and shadows. I made sure to position myself to take full advantage, or at least I tried to as much as possible.
You don't want to waste such moments traveling or, doing whatever else, though I am guilty of wasting these moments, but ideally you need to be in the right place, ready to make the most of it. So my advice is this: whenever you encounter the kind of light that inspires you, just drop everything and shoot.
You'll find yourself invigorated, and you'll add an extra layer or dimension to your photos. Instead of capturing scenes in a straightforward manner, which often occurs under flat and overcast light, your photos can become more atmospheric and even more poetic.
An important lesson from recent days involves leveraging your setting to evoke a sense of place, particularly in locations like Cachoeira, with its colonial architecture and really rustic vibe.
While portraits are definitely valuable, failing to utilize their unique architectural features, the textures of a location, that would be just such a missed opportunity. Just consider the photo of Gabriel, the kid with a football. Initially, he was playing against a wall. Could have been anywhere. So I changed my angle very consciously to include the colonial architecture that was on the other side of the street. This instantly gave my photo a very strong sense of place. I applied this method in other shots too. At the market in Cachoeira, I included details that distinctly said, "This is a market. These things are on sale." In the fishing village, I captured elements like boats, crab traps, of course nets, to highlight where the scenes were taking place. Photos of the boys against that historical church, they also benefited from this approach. Without the church, the vibrant colors, they would have been nice, the light would have been nice, but the church background adds a sense of story, a sense of place, and even a touch of serendipity. At times, I even focused solely on those details that created a sense of place. I was emphasizing their importance in my photos.
This is the last point that I want to touch on. In true street, travel, and documentary photography, there are no secrets to success. When we admire powerful images from real life, we often ask, how did the photographer capture that? And sometimes there is cheating, the scenes are staged, but authentic photography of life as it unfolds has no shortcuts. What you need is patience, which I often find challenging, but you need to be prepared to walk the same streets, go to the same places over and over again. I sometimes choose a few spots where something interesting might happen, and then I just rotate between them to keep myself engaged due to my lack of patience. If one spot doesn't work out, just move on to the next. And in that next spot, you might stumble upon something or somebody interesting, like the wood carver that I encountered, which led to some unexpected shots. And with these images, I just walked and walked along the shoreline, watching, reacting, anticipating. Again, there's no magic formula, only perseverance, patience, and repetition. Okay, I've got to wrap it up here. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you've stuck with me this far, I guess you're into this kind of content. If you are, then I am considering of maybe launching a membership website with these kinds of videos, but in more details, accompanied by PDF, technical settings, lens, and all that sort of information. This kind of content would be much more current than my past educational content. I would document my experiences as I have here, and then I would share immediately everything that I've learned and everything that is could be very useful for you. So what do you think? I would really appreciate your feedback on this one. Also, I've been experimenting with travel films that I shot over the past year before the first camper was destroyed. I'll soon start posting a few of them just to see how all of you react. So stay tuned for those too. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Let me know what you think about anything in the comments below. Do give me a like if you like this, and until next time.